What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Sorry It's True podcast. Shout out to everybody that normally joins the lives, but I want to get a recording up for this one. We'll get a video upload going on for this particular topic. Gillie Da Kid, he came out speaking on something that is extremely sensitive, something that is virtual hell for any father, any parent, any mother to go through, the loss of a child. And to hear him speak out on Club Shay Shay's platform about the situation, it's also a revelation as well because to get such of a clear confirmation that this is the person that was responsible for my son no longer being here, there's gonna be obvious passion in what Gilly has to say about this. So I'll save some reaction towards the end. I have some very important topics to touch on in response to what Gilly says.
I saw about the 17-year-old basketball player, straight A student. Am I wrong, Gilly? It used to be like the athletes, they got protected.
Right.
Nobody touched him. Hey, he good now. He gonna be what they're gonna be talking about the block. He from the block, he got out. They protected those guys. What happened?
That's who killed my son.
Mm.
The 17?
Yeah.
Mm.
The 17-year-old basketball player that just got shot 17 times?
Yes.
That's who killed my son.
Really?
Yes.
What was that about?
Well, it wasn't for my son.
Your son happened to be there?
Yes.
Oh.
Them blocks is beefing. They going through it. My son just so happened to pull up out there 5 minutes. They come to shoot the block up. My son's not from that block. He don't, you feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He just so happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
What the?
That's how deep it is.
Bro, he has the potential to get out.
Right.
And he living that life?
No. But see, you don't understand. He got videos out where he got a Joker mask on.
Right.
Bunch of guns in his hand. So these kids is influenced by all the wrong things.
Right.
To shit that don't matter. You know what I mean?
Right.
To shit that once upon a time when I was growing up in the ghetto, I was influenced by.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you experience things, when you go places, when a vacation to you is not going through a toll booth. See, you gotta understand, if you from Philly right now, go to Atlantic City and you call them and they say they out of town. Yo, I'm OT, I hit you, nigga, you 45 minutes away, nigga, you went through the toll booth. The are you talking about? That's how poor the city is.
Right.
Motherfucker go to Atlantic City and they tell you, yo, I'm OT, I'll call you when I get back.
Right.
You 39 minutes away in a car, nigga. What are you talking about, you OT? So you gotta understand,
right?
That's what we grow up in. These kids don't know no better.
Right.
These kids actually think that you can't make it as a rapper unless you killed somebody. Unless you did something out here in these streets. This is the mindset.
Yeah. Why is the rap, why is that glamorized? Why is going to jail, or I pull that iron out, I put that stick on something, why is that glamorized?
I have no idea. I told you when I was young, we glamorized the person that was getting money, the hustler. That's why rap names was like Gotti. Rap games, it was always somebody that was getting some money. Now, it don't be about no money or nothing. They'll kill you about an Instagram post.
Right.
You said you was gonna slide, you ain't slide yet.
Right.
Now I slid. Like, are you serious?
Right.
So it don't make no sense. And it's no answer for it. It's just flat out plain stupidity. The only reason why I know is because the police called me and told me once he was murdered. Once he got, because the kid had just got shot 17 times. He was walking with his mom.
Oh.
And he got murdered. And then the police notified me and let me know that he was one of the kids that was pretty much about to get locked up for the murder, but he got murdered first. So, and then, when you do something in the streets know. So, they all on Instagram and they talk, and then, apparently this kid name was the Joker. And, that's what he did. So,
Man, a lot to unpack there. A lot to unpack there. Before I even get into my main bullet points from just that quick 4 minute, 3+ minute discussion from Gilly and Uncle Shay, I will say this. I don't believe that all the questions and all the interviews that Club Shay Shay does are filtered. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing because you get the realness out of people that sit down as your guests. You get real reactions. You get more truthful responses. And I've always appreciated media like that, because at the end of the day, these recordings and these interviews are not live. So if we happen to get into a topic, or if I happen to give an answer that maybe I think is going to hurt my career, that I think is not good for my brand, or if I said something that, I was just in the middle of an emotional crash out on your camera, you always have the opportunity to say, hey man, delete that, or hey, don't put that out, or scratch that part. So one of the reasons, and I say this with no sarcasm and no joking at all, I'm dead serious. The reason why I believe that it's not filtered is because this is Gilly. Gilly is extremely serious, obviously, over this topic of revolving around his son, and he's wearing that hat. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Gilly came on that platform, knowing that he was about to discuss and divulge and confirm his son's killer, probably been a real 100% from head to toe serious setting. I'm going to assume that maybe this is all in the midst of, the Super Bowl run or celebration, because I seen Gilly out there in New Orleans. You know what I'm saying? He was having a great time like the rest of us. So shout out to Gilly for being unfiltered, and shout out to Shay Shay for giving people the opportunity to be expressive like this. And if you're going to ask these type of questions, also being respectful. So shout out to both of these brothers for that. Now, let's get into some of the points from Gilly's Gilly's sit down here. So the first thing that I notice is that Gilly he doesn't express any hurt about the murderer, right? When he says things like, "Oh yeah, the kid that got shot 17 times," like saying the number of shots, or he's like walking with his mother, or when he says things like, "See, the thing is, the streets know." Well, Gilly's from the streets, and not only is Gilly from the streets, Gilly is extremely tapped in. And when you talk about Philly, Gilly is a person that is also to be protected. He is protected, and past Philly he is, but he's definitely protected in Philly. This is why Charleston White apologized and felt the threat factor after he disrespected Gilly's son. This is why. And this is why you had people that came out and spoke on Gilly's behalf, because he's protected. And in a situation like this, he damn sure should be. I brought Oskino up on my podcast. If some of y'all seen that old episode that I got up here, and I asked him about Charleston White, and he was ready to move for Gilly behind Charleston White disrespecting the passing of Gilly's son, right? So the streets know, and there's not too much doubt in my mind that Gilly possibly caught wind of who was involved. I don't say that to implicate him in anything. I just say that to say that when he got that phone call from the police department, I think that leads back into how I started this point, which is he wasn't shocked because he knows that people possibly know. And in the streets where people are beloved and protected, there's this thing called retaliation. And Gilly could have had nothing to do with it, but he could be smart enough to know like that might happen to him. So when these police officers called him and said, "Hey, man, we had a suspect in your son's death. He happened to be the guy that just got shot 17 times the other day." I'm pretty sure Gilly was not shocked at all. An example of that, you saw that depiction in the Gotti movie, and it's traced to true events, right? Remember when Gotti's son got killed, and that was even by accident. That wasn't an all-out shooting. It was by accident. Gotti's son was hit by his neighbor's car on accident. Sammy the Bull asked Gotti, like, "Yo, man, who did this?" Sammy the Bull wanted to do something behind that. He wanted revenge for that. My brother just lost his son, right? Gotti said it was an accident, man. Let it go. Sammy, yeah, all right. Later on, he still killed the neighbor just out of retaliation for his brother, and his brother didn't green light it. His brother said, leave it alone. So you see my points here. This is all leading to why I don't believe that Gilly is shocked behind this kid being killed. It's another reason why you don't see him showing any showing sympathy is a strong word, but let me make the word. Let me make the point. Um, you don't hear him say, rest in peace to that young man. It's unfortunate what these kids are doing. And I'm not saying that he needs to. Um, any fathers or mothers that watch this video, I assume that y'all are all like Gilly. It would be very, very hard to show sympathy or any levels of remorse for somebody that took your child from you. I'll leave that point there. So there was also a statement of when Shay Shay says to him, man, when we used to come up, it was about protecting the young ones, man, protecting the ones that could make it out, protecting the sports players, right? Those days are gone. I'm an 80s baby, so Gilly's 41 years old. He's an 80s baby as well. Gilly comes from the same times that I come from. He's from Philly. I'm from New York, the boroughs. All right. And we both came up seeing that. But those days, if you look around now, it's over. There is no community. There is no, it takes a village to raise a child. And that those days are done, unfortunately. So the protection of these kids, not only are the adults not there, and the community not being as uplifting for the youth or the young ones as they used to be, but the kids have triple and double their age ahead of its time in today's world, right? When I say that, what do I mean? I mean, like, the 8-year-old that used to be out in the backyard trying to dig a hole and race his friends around the block and play hide and seek or build a clubhouse or ride a skateboard or play some whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, those kids now is getting into guns. They're getting way, way, way more into gangs earlier and more frequent. The gangs have existed, of course, when we was in the 80s and when we was children, but it's more common and it's more of the norms now. And it's something that we have to watch out for, even the most innocent of kids in our households today. You think that little Johnny is just in his books and going back and forth to school. Little Johnny might be getting coaxed into being in a gang, right? And the exposure to violence that these kids have at these early ages, it's nothing like when we was young. We have this thing now called the internet and social media. These kids are being exposed to things way, way, way too early. And then with that exposure comes influence. You don't always see the bad when you're influenced and when you're exposed to some of these things on the internet and social media and from your community and from your friends. You don't always see the bad. And then on top of that, the true gravity of the consequences that we face, death or jail, when you're that young, you don't really interpret it. You don't even develop a strong respect for life until you gain a certain level of maturity. So when you add on, the exposure and the social media and the influence and the internet to today's kid, we're losing that battle unless the parenting steps up his game. The parents have to meet those times head on, full force, in a way that we never had to do in the 80s and 90s. Because now we're combating, instead of just, the bad influences, whatever kid around the corner that you want to keep your child away from, you're not just combating that anymore. You're combating thousands, if not millions, of bad influences, because they're all right there for your child to talk to right here now. That's a big difference. So that's my quick rant when we answer and we get into the protecting of young kids. When Shay Shay asked that question, that's my answer. Okay. The next one, Gilly makes a great point, man, when he says these kids these days, man, they don't feel like they can make it unless they killed someone. Having stripes, we even hear it in our music. You know, everybody around me got a body. Can't be around me if you ain't never put in work before. Um, Once again, it's a different type of influence that these kids are going through, right? But we don't do a good job denouncing it. Gilly has no direct blame in this at all. I'm just using Gilly as an example when we talk about like these platforms, like $1 million worth of game interviewed Little Dirk, right? And Wallow cried and begged Little Dirk not to seek retaliation, and that was a beautiful moment. And I wish Little Dirk and everybody in that room holds on to Wallow's words, right? But there's also all these platforms that glamorized and brought on and promoted, like the King Vons of the world, right? King Von is still glamorized to today. There's documentaries out on him calling him hip hop's first serial killer, but ain't nobody speaking against him other than like the Charleston Whites of the world, right? And we can't even listen to Charleston White, so he's the wrong messenger, right? But imagine like if the Gillies and the Wallows of the world and the Shay Shays of the world and what other platforms, the Joe Button podcast, academics, No Jumper. I mean, what I'm about to say is impossible. It'll never happen. Adam 22 wants to hire the gangsters to sit down and to promote his show. You know what I'm saying? He wants to hire the gang members to come up there and flush out their beefs and talk about their hoods and call people on three-way and speakerphone and argue right there on camera and ignite the hoods and all this type of shit. But the point is, these platforms, we don't denounce, these influences. It's part of our culture, so it's not easy to denounce. So I ain't really pointing no fingers, you know what I'm saying? But it's the truth. It's the truth. The needing of stripes, like even somebody like, let's say, a 50 Cent, right? Um, you know how many people back then when his album went diamond thought it was cool that he got shot up and then came back with full force and rapped about it? You know how many people thought that moment was cool? Like to see him win in that fashion, right? Look, if I ask you right now, what's a geek? If I ask you right now, what's a nerd? The imagery that pops in your head is really just an innocent person that might be a little bit smarter and might have his mind a little bit more in the books. Yet we put a fucking negative connotation on it. We are sick sometimes. We are sick. Like it was the same thing when I was in school, man. If you ain't had no dirt on your hands, if you ain't had no stripes, if you didn't have wasn't in no gangs, if you didn't get in no fights, if you didn't put in no work, you were looked at as soft. You could have been picked on. You were on the outside. You couldn't sit at the cool table. The girls didn't fuck with you the same. The guys didn't respect you the same. That is true. That is true. And where we come from are these aggressive areas. Our schools are aggressive. Our streets are aggressive. Our neighborhoods are aggressive. Our surroundings are aggressive. Our influences are aggressive. Our parents are aggressive, right? And we grow that skin on one side, and then on the other side, it's damn near a requirement for your own survival to show like, oh, this person, he said my name and I punched him dead in his mouth so that the rest of the vultures don't feed off of you. It's a sick setup that we're all in. And it's unfortunate as shit. I'm not trying to say I have all the answers, but I damn sure I have all the understanding. We lived through it and we're still living through it. Some of us are fortunate enough to get further and further and further away from it, but there's still many of us right there. The segment where Gilly gets into some of these niggas, they'll leave Philly and go to AC, which is a 59-minute drive away, and say they OT. Yeah, I probably did that before too. I'm from New York, and I done drove to AC a billion times and felt I was OT. And this is something for I know the demographic of my channel is a little bit older, right? But if I have any viewers of this particular video that are like, let's say, teenagers or in your 20s, hear me out on this. Traveling will change you as a person. It'll add dimensions to you as a person. It'll add layers to you as a person. It'll even save you in some respects. I was the guy that was going to Miami Beach every Memorial Day weekend. That was my shit. My niggas still clown me to this day about it. I had some of my niggas, they had their passports and they was going out the country and it was like, yo, where we going for May? And I didn't have that much money. I would say if I could save up and get myself one trip a year, it was Miami. I'm going from New York to Miami for Memorial Day weekend. That's my heaven. Right? Now, at least I'm OT with that. You know what I'm saying? At least I actually had to catch a flight to that. And it took me a minute, but I let my boys finally convince me, like, nah, get your passport, man. We going out the country this particular summer. All right, let's do it. And that experience started to change me. It changes you in the respect of when you see different cultures, when you go to some of these third world countries and you see their levels of living that's like a million times beneath America and what they got to deal with. It changes you. We're out there on vacations on these four-wheelers doing these excursions, and there's little babies, 4 or 5 years old or whatever, trying to chase down these four-wheelers with their hands out, looking for, even if you could hand them one chip out of the bag, even if you could hand them one little piece of gum, even if it's pre-chewed, they're running down on you for it. And then you go back home and you like, fuck, I'm complaining because there's no more milk in the fridge, right? The things that you see, the things that you experience, and then even from like a financial side, you get put on these different courses because you want to do that more. You want to do that again. So now instead of hanging out too much or fucking off my money in the wrong ways or whatever, you're focused on keeping your shit together in certain respects so that you could live that type of lifestyle, right? I could have a sub thought of it. This is why Vlad and Boosie had that episode on the Vlad TV platform talking about flying first class. I understand what they're saying. It's not about being bougie and saying, "Oh, I'm in first class." It's about once you do it once or twice, it changes you. And now you also have to strive to bring your life wherever it needs to be so that you can be consistently there instead of in coach, right? These are the type of concepts along the way, along your path that make you tighten up in certain areas, change the way you spend, your spending habits, open up your mind towards these different communities and the world and these different countries, pull you away from other things that might be negative, right? So youngins out there, you see a video like this, trust me, travel. I have one of my old close friends when we went to Brazil and we took that tour up to the Tower of Christ, you know, the big Tower of Christ with his arms out to the side like that. When we got to the top of that hill and we got in front of it, one of my old close friends, he cried. He got up there and cried because he's from the same place that we all from. He's from the hood and his school is a 2 on Zillow. You know what I'm saying? And he got up there and he started crying, saying, I'm not even supposed to be here. Right? That's what breaks down these mentalities of where we're even supposed to be or how far we're supposed to be able to go. Travel, people. And if AC happens to be your OT for now, that's okay. But continue to grow on that. So I love the point that Gilly was making there as well. It's important. Next up, gangsters being glorified. Gilly, you know, he said he didn't really have to answer for that. And I understand what he meant by that. I know if you give Gilly a chance to expound on that, like he has a lot of things that he would say. I'll give you a couple of those answers. It's a very deep topic. I'll just get on a few of them. Good guy, bad guy, good cop, bad cop, even if we go there from our childhood. Why is the bad guy glorified? Why is the gangster glorified? Not just because that's the guy that was driving up and down the block with the nice cars or had the money and the nice clothes and the girls around him. I mean, that's enough influence within itself, right? But it's not just that. Also, it's some of our teachings, right? Coming from most of the places that we come from, what's even the reputation of a cop? What are we taught from our peers, even before you have an experience with a police officer, whether it's getting a ticket on the side of the street, whether it's getting beat on or pushed on or violated, even before you have your first experience with a police officer or law enforcement, you're probably already being told that they are pigs and they are pieces of shit and they are against us. And it's easy for us to feel that way because that's really how we're treated across history in our own communities, unfortunately. But not all cops are bad, and walking around with that rage towards police is never a good thing. The ones that are pieces of shit, you treat them as such. The ones that are sit there and slap box with you or play basketball with you or let you slide even though you were speeding and say, yo, man, just tone it down, man, drive a little bit slower. We got to remember that those ones exist as well. And we got to teach our kids about survival, period. When we teach our children flat out, this stereotype applies to all, we're already setting our children up for failure, right? We're giving them closed-minded information and these kids are clay. It's the same reason that these 2-year-olds are coming up saying fuck this race or fuck this culture or they're hailing Hitler or whatever, and they don't have any experiences with these people or these nationalities, but they're clay and they're being taught that. And then they grow up and they want to join the Ku Klux Klan or they want to be skinheads, and then we wonder why. It's not always because something happened in their life. They could have been taught that shit from clay, and we do that. We do that. The bad guy has always been glamorized. Like when we sit there and we watch Scarface, why are we rooting for Scarface? I'm a victim of that. Why are we rooting for Scarface? Why do we want to see Tony win? You know, and we don't denounce this stuff. Like our murderers get murals. You know, our murderers get movies. If you come from that mafia time period as well. I'm from Staten Island, so you know the mafia vibe was always, thought about in my childhood. I remember some of the Italian kids around me claiming it or wanting to act it out. Some of them was really affiliated, the Gambinos and all this type of stuff. Like that mafia element at that time. How many people wanted to be like John Gotti? John Gotti was beloved. Now, there are certain rules that the John Gotti and the mafias of the world are supposed to be looked at as stand up, which is you ain't in the line of fire unless you in our lifestyle or in our world. We're not for the women. We're not for the children. We're not for the civilians. We're not for the innocent. So that's respectable. Are there innocents and casualties along the way? Fuck yeah. What do you think happens to this little store owner that is innocent and his store just happens to be in a neighborhood that you run and you want to extort him? You affect him, you affect his family, you affect everybody involved with this paycheck that's coming out of this store simply because you want to extort them. So we glamorize this shit. We put it in our music, we put it in our movies, and shout out to the piece of shit that I talked about on this morning's live stream. That fucking actor that had those racist remarks like Samuel L. Jackson monkeying around. If you're gonna do the black thing or the collard greens, that piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like people like him. Don't forget, dude. Like you walk around with your little mafia get up and presentation. Like and Hollywood, like you want to talk about hip hop, Hollywood to me is just as strong when it comes to influence. Like when y'all put out these portrayals, what the fuck are y'all doing? Y'all ain't clean. So us glamorizing the bad guy, it's part of our teachings, it's part of our culture, it's part of our ignorance. And to many degrees, it is unfortunate. It is. I want to steal this one from Gilly himself because the first time I heard him say it, I thought it was extremely impactful. And I've walked around with it ever since. I've been repeating it for years. I love it. In an old interview, I heard Gilly once say, if you come from the hood, that's nothing to brag about. If you come from the hood, if you grew up in the projects, that just means your parents were fucked up. I don't want to turn this into an hour-long stream when I start talking about the negative stereotype that our people put upon the silver spoon children. Letting your child not have to start the race from the actual start line, right? Wanting your child to start the race from the middle of the race or even damn near the finish line, or the LeBron James using his influence to put his son in the fucking NBA. or this silver spoon opportunity where your son inherits ownership, stocks, bonds, real estate. If you're a parent and you're not striving for that, you're wrong. Your mentality is wrong. It's okay to get it out the mud, people. I've gotten a lot out the fucking mud and I'm proud of it. It builds character. But on the flip side, you think that I would want my children to have to go through everything that I went through as far as scraping and scratching and working and hitting this alarm clock 4 o'clock in the morning for fucking 80 years straight? No, nobody wants that for their children. You want them to earn, you want them to appreciate the value of a dollar. You want them to get certain things out of the mud. It does build character. It does build the understanding of work ethic and working hard. But a parent is supposed to strive for handing down as much as possible to his child. It's not just about being there in front of your child, as they grow up and by the time they leave, head away to school, hopefully, or get into their later teens or their young adult years, then you could step away and say, okay, you're on your own now. That's still good, to have at least a guide there, that's good. But me personally, I feel like it's also a parent's job to not start your child at the starting line. There's so much competition in this world. We don't say it's not what you know, it's who you know for no reason. And you want to know one of the people that your child knows? You, motherfucker, mommy and daddy. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Okay, well, the people I know closest to me is mommy and daddy. Mommy, where you putting me? Daddy, where you putting me? I'm gonna put you right here in this chairman seat of this business. I'm gonna put you right here, owner and inheritance of all these stocks and bonds. I'm gonna put you right here as the CEO and let everybody hate on you and say you don't deserve it. You're only there because of your father. That's cool. You okay though? That's cool. You okay now? I'm gonna teach you to work and do the right thing and carry your weight and do the right job. But if I put you there, that's cool. That's cool. If you come from the hood or you were raised in the project, that just means that your parents is fucked up. Those are Gilly's words. We need to actually apply them. We need to strive to put our children in a better place, a better spot in the race. That needs to be our constant goal as parents. 100%. Because if your child is, is has the possibility always to fall victim to their surroundings, what's one of the ways to save them? To remove them from those surroundings. Now, unfortunately, not everybody has that opportunity. And then there also is the reality that no matter where these kids are, they can get into shit. It goes down any and everywhere. It could be a 5-star restaurant in one of the most classiest zip codes ever. And it'll go down, right? It'll still go down. But it's decreasing the the commonality of what these kids have to endure and have to survive. And I'm gonna wrap that up there when I talk about survival. These kids looking up to the gangsters, wanting to be the gangsters, the murder of Gilly's son that, or they want to say that he was a basketball star. So why is he doing all this other shit? You know, and getting these kids in these survival modes is an unfortunate reality. Like the things that I'm saying right now, I don't expect to be of the mind state of an 18-year-old or even a 25-year-old. I'm just like those kids in that I had to survive those years. Gilly as well. Gilly got all that street shit still right in his soul because that's where he's from. All those ignorant years that he lived, um, we've watched his come up. We watched him beefing with rappers and beefing the DVD era and all that, the mixtape days. We heard what Gilly rapped about. We heard what Gilly said. We saw what Gilly did on these DVDs. But he survived those younger years. He survived those ignorant places in life and times in life. Me as well. And it's a blessing to get that opportunity to be able to talk about it because I said it on a prior stream before and I'll say it again. We don't just have to survive our surroundings. We don't just have to survive the powers that be or the systemic traps that's already in front of us. We don't just have to survive our ops. we also have to survive ourselves. And that's where the word maturity comes in. There's just so much we don't give a fuck about, or so many bad paths or ways of thinking that we're into until we get older and gain more experience. And until we get older and gain more experience, that whole gap we have to survive. Until we get to the point where you say, what the fuck do I got this Joker mask on and I'm in these videos toting these guns and all this shit? Why am I doing that? Until you get to that point of maturity in life and values and looking at the world for the bigger picture that it's supposed to be, until you get there, you must survive yourself. Because we literally put ourselves sometimes in the worst circumstances ever. We put ourselves on these cameras to incriminate ourselves. We put ourselves around a bunch of people that we'll end up in jail with. We'll put ourselves in these situations where it's like, all right, we got to ride out. We got to gangbang. We got to do it. We put ourselves there. A lot of this don't come from the parents. I spoke about the parents prior, but now I want to speak about the individual. The parent could be at home saying, stay away from this person. Don't join that gang. Avoid this area. Don't go over there. Yes, mom. Yes, dad. You get out the house and that's the first place you go. You act like you're going to school. You leave the crib, you stash your books over here, and you're really down the block cut and getting into all types of shit. Headed to the ditch party on some training day shit, right? That's the reality of shit. We have to survive ourselves. Best thing we could do as the OGs and the big homies and the experienced ones of the world is talk like this and also show them face to face and stay as close as possible to try to help guide these youngins, man, because, you know, it's not easy to get to the place where we have made it, Gilly. It's not easy, but since we've made it, you know, us talking like this and carrying this type of energy, we kind of owe it back because we are the ones that, you know, were given those opportunities and those blessings. And that's why I also love Gilly and Wallow for some of the messages that they carry out into the community, because within itself, that's the give back. Trying to help people learn about surviving. Sorry, it's true.
Don't confuse silence with work ethic. I'm a boss making decisions, my first fetish. The verse cherished is perfect, that's a reverse blemish. I dropped it, connected the block, learn Tetris.
This is the Sorry It's True podcast. Welcome to the house of. And shout out to the members.
Without, I think still got a gun.